This was kind of an interest of mine before the project. Anything with gender norms, you go to the store and you see like goldfish crackers I saw at Target, pirate ones for boys or princess ones for girls. And it's one of those things where it's happening, it seems like everywhere um, nowadays. So I wanted to delve into, what kind of effects that have or doesn't have on children, and how gender roles exist within the family, and if they're imitated by the media or if the media is producing them. So I did some research on that, and then I have my video to show that kind of just goes through some of the trends and the effects of gender norms in children's advertising. So I will go ahead and start that. Just bring it to the front. Today, I'm going to talk about gender norms in children's advertising. When it comes to children's advertising, there are some divisive views. I'm going to talk about media's role in gender development and the effects of gender norms in advertising. 95% of children from the ages of 2 to 17 watch traditional television for an average of 20 hours a week. Traditional television in this case means on an actual TV, not a tablet, phone, or computer. Along with traditional television comes traditional advertising. With the amount of television children watch, it only makes sense that they are taking in the messages held within commercials. Any parent who has had their child ask them for a toy they've never heard of can attest to that. But before I get into how commercials are developed, I'm going to talk a bit about children and gender, how they form ideas not only about their own gender, but about gender as a whole through development and socialization. Children realize which gender they identify with by age 5. There's a few ways this can happen. They compare themselves to other kids or siblings and figure out the most appropriate ways to behave. This is Albert Bandura. He developed the social learning theory, which explains how children can learn gender-appropriate behavior. According to the social learning theory, children can learn behaviors through observation and social settings. They don't have to take action in a behavior to learn the response to it. If they see somebody perform an action and have a negative consequence, they learn themselves to not perform that action. When it comes to media, this means that children see positives and negatives on TV and learn how their gender fits in with those interactions. In both genders, as babies grow into toddlerhood and toddlers grow into children, they learn how to behave in gender-appropriate ways. Boys are brave and strong, girls are polite and quiet. The combination of gender-appropriate clothing and emotion creates an inherent knowledge in children of what their gender means not only to their self, but to others. A boy is watching TV and sees another young boy getting made fun of for crying, and he learns to avoid getting made fun of. He shouldn't cry. A girl sees other girls playing with dolls and scoffing at sports, so she learns to push aside interest in sports to align with other girls. In commercials, children are learning which toy gets positive reactions or which toys their gender seems to be liking, and they learn that toy is for their gender. Now, when it comes to emotional development in children, boys have not been proven to be more or less emotional than girls. However, it has been found that boys learn to hide emotions of fear and sadness. These are typically feminine emotions, and people learn to hide emotions that differ from their societal positions. Just as children learn gender expectations from parents, siblings, and peers, they also learn from television. So if they are learning from the people in their lives, how does media have an effect? Well, studies have shown that children who watch more television are more likely to develop attitudes that mimic the gender roles in commercials. And when watching commercials, girls remember more about other girls they see, and boys remember more about boys. The combination of social learning and memory patterns create an ideal environment for children to gravitate towards gender norms. These gender norms in commercials don't just focus on children, they're also shown in parents and parental supervision. Regardless of which gender the children are in the commercial, the parent is most likely to be female. As time goes on, more men are being shown in this role, but the majority of commercials still have women supervising play. Kids as young as 2 are able to acknowledge gender differences in adults. This is because they're familiar. Gender roles are demonstrated in parents from the day a child is born. When children are that young, they tend to generalize gender norms and reject the stereotypes that aren't fitting in with those norms. This helps little ones figure out their world and how they'll fit in. The portrayal of stereotypical gender behavior in adults on television acts as a model for children to grow into. Not all of the differences in children's commercials are visible. There is also a pattern with voiceovers and advertisements. Voice commercials are typically narrated by male voices, voices that emphasize action, competition, and control. The girls' advertisements are more likely than boys to be narrated by the opposite gender, but still mainly by female voices. These ads emphasize emotions and nurturing behaviors. Now, a person may say, surely when girls see commercials aimed towards boys, they can also choose to play with the toys the boys have. And that statement is, of course, true. Boys and girls can choose any toy in any commercial, but the portrayal of certain toys for certain genders is told over and over in commercials. Boys are more likely to be shown with cars, and girls are more likely to be shown with dolls. Children play with toys that help them express themselves, but they also choose toys based on what their peers have. When they see girls their age playing with dolls, they gravitate towards those toys to help establish their identity. So although children could choose any toy, what is more likely to happen is the child will choose the toy that aligns with his gender. The existence of gender norms is what would cause him to treat his gender and allow behavior with more rigidity. I also want to touch on socialization. Yes, gender development can be a product of the environment. Children become socialized with their peers at a young age through play. They learn how to play with one another and which toys are coveted and which ones aren't for them. As kids get into play groups, they learn to choose appropriate toys for themselves. For boys, this could be trucks and action figures. They learn the social norms for toy choice and also see it reflected back to them by commercials and advertisements. Not only is it reflected back, but for kids who watch more TV, they may experience some gender norms for the first time and see those norms rewarded in relationships. The media not only affects, but helps shape ideas of gender in children. Boys who are action and adventurers are not a bad thing, and neither are girls who like princesses and dolls. However, it is important to recognize the media's influence on children and their development. When people, not only children, but people, are introduced to a stereotype, they tend to behave in ways that align with that stereotype and their societal place. When a little boy sees stereotypical little boys, he becomes socialized to those attributes. Again, these attributes and gender norms, along with the commercials that portray them, cannot be pointed to as detrimental to children. The problem lies in the rigidity of behavior and constricting children to a certain behavior. Gender-neutral commercials would be the best choice for children to explore toys and appropriate behavior because they wouldn't have any limits. And isn't that what any parent wants? All children should be able to experience their world without limits to what they can do. Thank you.
Okay, so that was the little video that I produced. I also have something that I put together to kind of go in conjunction with the video. So it just goes through kind of some of the gender stereotypes that exist, just reiterating things that I spoke about. And then it also has some screen caps that I grabbed from commercials just to show some of the trends. So kind of girls doing creative work or playing together with the easy bake oven, them being in a more domestic nurturing role or even in their aprons with their mother supervising them. And then down to the boys' commercials, playing around with the buzzsaw or destroying logs and building things, really being more active in their play. And then, of course, with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is action just because of the characters that they are. And this one was interesting because there was a moment that I grabbed where it appears as though there are two little girls in the commercial, but it was just for that brief second, and it really does show more boys playing. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting with the kind of action and then even the color schemes in the commercials that vary from one's focused at boys and one's focused at girls. So that's what I completed with that. And then
Can,
if Jalen, you
Shelby,
have any questions.
Shelby, could you show us the whole cartoon because
Oh, yes, of
or
course.
maybe there you go. Maybe read it to us. So
I'm sorry, would you like me to read it or?
just in case some people can't see it.
Sure. So it's got a voice with a toy being handed to a little boy, and it says it's Mega Blocks, and the boy says, "Well, what does it do?" And then they say, "Be arranged in literally infinite ways, then hooked to a computer and remote controlled." And then it says, "For girl toys, it's a doll. Well, what does it do?" And then she says, "Be a doll." And then it says, subsequently, "Why are there so few girl engineers?" So it just plays into that idea of the toy differences that kind of start at a very young age and how they shape what children end up doing.
And it's an interesting phenomenon that's going on right now. I hadn't seen this cartoon until you or this comic strip until you sent this in. But there are a lot fewer women that are going into computer science now. There was a growth in I think it's the late 70s, early 80s, and now there's a very small amount of females that are going into computer science. Interesting to look at it from this perspective that you're showing here with engineers. So I do have a few questions for you. First of all, I do want to say that very well done. I like how you provided examples and you were able to support your claims with literature and research that's been done. So I was on that note. Are did you have an opportunity to possibly watch some Saturday morning cartoons or something in that genre to see if there is starting to be a change in how these commercials are targeted and if they're being more gender neutral?
I watched some children's programming on television, not as much as I would have liked to. Um, I did notice that I see more gender neutral advertisements actually in print than I saw on television. So in magazines, I have tended to see more boys and girls playing together, as opposed to on television. It tends to stick more to boys are in this action figure commercial and then girls are in this Barbie commercial. And then I actually have seen more gender differences in adult commercials. I know there's a line of Tide commercials that have men doing the laundry, as opposed to women, but I haven't seen that kind of trickle down to children's advertising in the same way.
Okay. And are you aware, are there any initiatives right now going on? For example, some of the psychologists that have um, done this research and had these findings, have they been effective in um, getting people to change, or are there any initiatives out there to change children's advertising as far as that goes?
I'm not sure of any off the top of my head. A lot of the advertising, or I'm sorry, a lot of the studies that I did read, though, went into the ways that things can change or what would be the most beneficial ways to change, suggestions in that vein. But I haven't seen any actual initiatives come out.
Okay.
I know that, when things make a big splash, everybody hears about them. Like Goldie Blocks came out, which was the engineering toys for little girls, and that kind of comes out in advertising, but I haven't seen any kind of initiatives in that sense.
Well, thank you. Anything that you would like to say in closing for your capstone?
Just that I was really pleased to be able to kind of explore this project further, because I had been interested in it, but I had never delved into it from an academic point of view or what it actually means or does. I just had noticed it kind of as a viewer of television or somebody who consumes media. I would almost say it was just really satisfying to kind of gather the research and to learn more about what actually is going on when these messages are being produced over and over.
Well, thank you. This is Dr. Jerry Lynn Hogg, and I want to congratulate Shelby Fechtman in completing her capstone. And if I have the information correctly, you're also completing your master's at Fielding Graduate University in media psychology.
Yes,
Congratulations! Yay!
thank you.
Hand claps, hand claps.
Yes, yes, yes.